I do believe that is this. I think this is beyond just any other technological disruption or transformation. I think it's bigger and it's happening faster. And it's bigger than the internet. It's bigger than electricity of your workforce. You don't outsource that to a consultant. You, as the leader of your family business, you have to know, not be an AI expert, but know just enough to cast your vision for the future to ensure that this thing can pass on. Yeah. So I have experience working in a family business. So I was the chief growth officer for a company called Jindal Steel, which is a family steel business out of India. I was their chief growth officer. And over a 4-year period, we moved their market cap from 750 million to 12 billion. That's where I found AI.
Welcome to Business in Families, where leadership, legacy, and continuity come together. I'm Alex Méndez, family business advisor and facilitator. And over the last 2 decades, I've had the privilege of working with business families navigating one of the most difficult transitions any organization can face: how to remain relevant across generations while the world changes faster than the family itself. And today, I think we're entering one of those defining moments in history. For decades, business families compete through relationships, intuition, resilience, and long-term thinking. But now, leaders are facing something fundamentally different. The speed of change is accelerating. Information overload is overwhelming decision-making. Younger generations are adopting AI naturally, while many senior leaders, such as myself, still see it with skepticism or fear. And many organizations are asking themselves, how do we preserve our values and culture while completely reinventing the way we lead? Before we begin, I also want to acknowledge and thank the support of the Landing Consulting Group for supporting conversations like this one. Over the years, I've seen firsthand how they help organizations, including many family enterprises, move from strategy to execution, improving productivity, strengthening processes, and helping leadership teams adapt to increasingly complex environments. Their support makes these global conversations possible. That's why I'm especially excited about today's conversation. Our guest is Geoff Woods, author of The AI-Driven Leader, and someone who has worked closely with executives and organizations around the world to help them leverage AI not just as a tool, but as a strategic advantage. Geoff, what really caught my attention is that in your book, you also discuss your experience helping a very large family business, because family enterprises are unique. They don't just think about quality performance or earnings. They think about continuity, identity, trust, legacy, and future generations. So today, I love to explore not only how AI changes organizations, but how AI might transform leadership, governance, succession, and even the future family business themselves. Geoff, welcome to Business in Families.
Welcome to Business in Families, Geoff. Every generation of business leaders faces a defining force that reshapes the way companies compete. For my grandfathers and yours, that generation was industrialization. For my father's generation, it was globalization. And for mine, not yours, it was digital transformation. Do you believe AI is simply another technological wave, or are we witnessing a once-in-a-lifetime generation shift that will fundamentally determine which family businesses survive and which will disappear over the next 20 years?
I do believe that is this. I think this is beyond just any other technological disruption or transformation. I think it's bigger and it's happening faster. And it's bigger than the internet. It's bigger than electricity. And the speed at which it's happening is unprecedented. And so, I think, 2 years ago when I was writing my book, The AI Driven Leader, there was so much hype around, if you don't adopt this now, you're going to go out of business. And I was early saying, I think that's hype. I don't think that's real. I do believe, however, that it is existential at this point that leaders personally be in the game using this, because if not, they lack vision and credibility for how are they going to lead the transformation of your workforce. You don't outsource that to a consultant. You, as the leader of your family business, you have to know, not be an AI expert, but know just enough to cast your vision for the future to ensure that this thing can pass on from generation to generation, to define your strategy for how you're going to win. Because if you think your competitive advantage is durable and sustainable, you need to test that assumption. AI is changing everything around moats, and be credible enough to be leading this from the front inside your organization so that you stay ahead of the competition and win.
From when you started that journey about a couple of years ago, beginning writing this book and you launched it, what do you think is fundamentally changed in your mindset in terms of leadership?
Not much, actually. Well, the things that I wrote in the book have held up. And I wrote the book to be timeless on a subject that is so timely. I didn't realize how right a lot of the things I put in the book were. I think the things around leadership that have shifted for me is more, I had a theory that the leader needed to lead the charge. I didn't realize how right that was going to be. And what I think is changing my view is how much this is an opportunity to enhance the value of the people inside your organization. I think most people are asking the wrong questions. I think they're asking, how do we use this to reduce our headcount? I think that's the wrong question.
Definitely.
Because if you think about making an investment, if you can invest $1 and get $1.10 or $1.20 back, that's a pretty good investment. And I think with most employees, that's the kind of return they're getting. $1 in, $1.10, $1.20 back. But I view humans as the ability to put $1 in and to get 10 back, or 100 back, or 1,000 back. So I am not asking, how do I use this to reduce headcount? I'm asking, how do I use this to 10x or to 100x the impact the people in my organization can be bringing? How you do that has evolved in terms of my vision for that.
And that's called leadership. Those are the guys that are going to be leading the future of businesses in the world. The ones that taking in consideration all these tools and say, how can I think differently and put these perspectives
Yes.
into the marketplace I'm dealing with, which is changing every day.
Correct.
So for many family businesses, founders build successful companies really to a lot of intuition, building relationships, experiences, and decades of accumulated judgment. Now AI is changing the whole ballgame, introducing a completely different way of making decisions, or at least accessing information. What do you think is harder for founders, learning AI or accepting that some of the assumptions that made them successful may no longer be enough?
I think it depends on the founder and how much pride and ego they have. I lean toward the latter. What got you to where you were was your ability to think strategically, to make decisions. And I think it takes real humility as a leader to acknowledge that all the decisions that you have made have been based on the knowledge that you have learned over your lifetime, of which you can recall and apply the minority of it. And that's the minority of the knowledge and information of the world. Now you have a tool like AI. If you think about how many books you've read in your life, whether it's 100, 500, 1,000, like you can't remember much of what you read in those books. These AI models have been trained on about 500 million books worth of data. They can remember 100% of it in under a second. And so to be humble enough to say, I am not the smartest person. I don't have all the answers, but I can be the thought leader. And I can leverage AI and all its data and all its processing power as my thought partner. And if I can view that relationship where as thought leader, I'm in the driver's seat, as thought partner, AI's in the passenger seat, and it can enable me to make faster, smarter decisions, that's the real unlock.
And take into consideration that 90% of the companies in the world are family businesses. And there's a bunch of other companies that you deal with, like the Googles of this earth, or the public companies that are not family owned. But have you seen a shift of the mindset of these family businesses? And let's relate a little bit to the one client you had in India when you were in the verge of writing this book.
Yeah. So I have experience working in a family business. So I was the chief growth officer for a company called Jindal Steel, which is a family steel business out of India. I was their chief growth officer. And over a 4-year period, we moved their market cap from 750 million to 12 billion. That's where I found AI. It had literally been out for 2 weeks when I saw ChatGPT and started personally using it myself. I showed the chairman how I was using it, and he put me in charge of the AI for the whole company. When I think about family businesses, I think you're playing a different game. You're not necessarily playing like a public company to maximize shareholder return on a quarter-to-quarter basis. You're playing for longevity. You're playing for lineage. How do you create something that can last and be passed down generation to generation to generation? When I think about AI, it creates a real unique opportunity because quite often your children that you hope to succeed you may or may not have the same capability and skill that you have. Sometimes you have the unicorn where they're better than you are, but sometimes you're asking the question, how do I pass the baton down to somebody who maybe isn't ready or maybe isn't going to be able to perform at the level that I'm able to perform? And the thing that I look at is, how do you harness AI to capture your knowledge, to capture your skills, to capture your processes, and not have to do transfer from human brain to human brain, but turn those into systems inside the company that the next generation can tap and can harness? That becomes a durable asset that can live within the business.
Oh, definitely. And one of the things that I'm passionate about is about talking about succession and continuity.
Yes.
And now about transferring ownership is transferring. It's more transferring about knowledge. Do you see this change happening in companies right now?
Of course. And I think this is where, in my book, The AI Driven Leader, I write about the story of creating an AI board. A CEO called me and said, we have a really big problem. And I said, what is it? And he said, well, I'm venture backed. We're racing, hopefully, to sell this thing in the next 24 months. Every quarter we exceed budget. Every year we hit our goals. But despite our performance, which is really good, we have a hostile board. Every quarter is a bloodbath. 50% of my executive team's time is wasted with distractions from the board. The chairman just called me and threatened me that if I don't transform our relationship over the next 6 months, he's going to fire me and my whole executive team. I asked him, what are you going to do? And he goes, honestly, I don't know. I swear it's not us, it's them. It's like these guys have all this childhood trauma they've never healed. We're like their punching bag. You think AI can help? My idea, Alex, was to create an AI board where we would have AI interview the executive team about one director until it understood that director so well that it could create a personality profile that we could simulate. We did that for every director, pulled that into a custom project, which is just like a folder inside of any of these tools, gave it instructions on how we wanted it to behave. We fed it the deck from the last quarter and said, tell us what you think the board will say. Mm-hmm. It said, on page 8, Susan's going to get distracted by all the details on your slide. This is going to lead to a 30-minute detour. It's going to derail your entire agenda. Instead of all the details, say these 3 things. It's what she cares about most. CEO goes, that is exactly what happened. So we used this and then used AI note takers in upcoming board meetings to refine and to tune the board personality profiles to the point that this executive team could predict with at least 90% accuracy what the board was going to ask before they asked it. That was my first light bulb moment into the realization that you can use AI to train it on how certain people will think and act. And when I think about a family business and succession planning, if you were able to take the brain and the thinking and the logic of the founder and install that in AI in a centralized system that the next generation could harness, and then you're able to create further profiles on the best parts that they have, all of a sudden this becomes a centralized asset that any employee can have access to. So when I look at my company, for example, we have a Geoff AI. It knows how I talk. It knows how I think. My team is able to engage with an AI persona of me before they ever bring me any idea, any problem, and it's able to simulate how it thinks I will act with them. That way they show up better prepared to win with me.
So where do you see yourself with this knowledge that you're gaining right now in the next 10 years?
See, this is the thing. Everything is happening so fast, I can't see beyond 3.
Okay.
I used to talk about having a 10-year vision. I can't see beyond 3 because it is. There was a quote I read from Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but pretty much everything you know about how your company runs today will be different within 5 years. Not 10, 5. He said that 2 years ago. And I don't think we have 3 years left. I don't think, because I'm seeing the pace at which things are accelerating now. I think it's less than 36 months before pretty much everything I knew about how my company operates would be fundamentally different from where it was back in 2024. And as a leader, I think while I can't predict the future, I can imagine, I can ask, who do I need to become today? And the thing I remember, I was standing at the gas pump when I heard this quote for the first time, pumping gas in my car. I remember thinking, Alex, I'm hearing that there is this tidal wave that's coming that can change everything I know about how my company runs. As a leader, I have a choice to make. Do I do nothing or do I do something? Do I delegate that or do I choose to lead it? And I think it's incumbent upon us as leaders to get in the driver's seat and realize, regardless of your title, you need to become an AI-driven leader. You're using this every single day yourself, not to write better emails, but as a thought partner to elevate how you think. Because when you do that, all of a sudden you can cast a vision for the future. You can define strategy for how you're going to win. You can start to lead the change. And it's a day by day, week, month, quarter by quarter type thing where how far I can see and what my vision for the future looks like is constantly, it is shifting and it's not. There are things that are timeless that I know I'm going to spend the rest of my life sharing ideas and asking questions that expands what's possible. I believe I'm dedicating the next 5 to 10 years of my life to help leaders harness AI to align strategy with execution to accelerate growth so they have better businesses and better lives. How I do that? Oh my gosh, how fast that is changing is crazy.
You travel the world and you see companies all over the world and leaders all over the world.
Yeah.
Are you seeing a different pace in terms of becoming a thoughtful leader, an AI leader? Depends on the geographic part of the world. Like I would say in Mexico, but I see companies instead of Mexico, like Guadalajara or other cities, and they're way behind.
Yes.
They don't know what's the ball game right now, and other companies are way ahead.
Yeah,
and that's
I
going to be
think
an enormous disparity in life.
Well, and when I was Chief Growth Officer for Jindal Steel, every quarter I would travel and work with executive teams across India, Dubai, Oman, South Africa, Mozambique, and Australia. The thing that was really interesting to me was realizing how there were certain ideas I brought as an American from the West, but certain ideas I would absorb from them and their local culture. And it was a beautiful puzzle to solve of how do I bring the best of what I can bring from America, but be willing to absorb the best from Mozambican culture, or the best from Indian culture, or the best from Omani culture. Those cultures have a certain way of thinking and acting that determines a lot here. If I look at Europe as an example, far more risk averse. They have leaned into governmental regulation far earlier, and those companies they're not embracing AI or leading with it. They're still questioning the value of it a lot. Versus you step into America and it is full blown sprint. How do we harness this thing? And so I think any country you go to, I think there's what exists inside that country's culture. And how does that show up in AI? I was in the Dominican last week, and when I meet with the Dominican people and the way that they naturally think around roles and agency and restructuring their jobs, it's different than what I'm used to experiencing here in America.
In that sense, and taking that into consideration, Geoff, from when you started writing your book and now you're at the verge of launching the new one, what is different? What has changed? What do you think the new leaders of the world are going to find in this new version of the book?
Realizing how much this tool is about doing what we've always done. It's about what's timeless. It's just through a lens that's really timely. When I think about how you build a great business that can endure, it's being clear on your strategy for how you're going to win, having a focused business plan you execute, aligning your people with that plan, and harnessing technology to supercharge the whole chain. So strategy, execution, people, and technology. So many people are asking, what's the right AI use case? I think that's the wrong question. Instead of going and looking for something new to do with AI, look at what you've always done that has proven to drive value and ask, how can AI help us do that? So when I look at the companies that we have worked with, the most value creation has come from harnessing AI to drive alignment on strategy, to drive faster, smarter execution on the most important priorities of the business, to enhance the strategic thinking of the workforce instead of the tactical execution of it. You focus on those things, which I call the 20 percenters that drive 80% of the results, enterprise value moves.
In this journey for the past 2 years, or maybe the past 5 years, what has been your biggest failure and what you learned about it?
Whew. Let's go last two. I learned a tough lesson. My vision was expanding for what was possible so fast. I remember when I started this company, I had a vision for what would have been extraordinary for us to achieve over a 10-year period in terms of revenue and profit. By end of year one, I realized that achieving that 10-year vision was not like, oh my gosh, that would be extraordinary. It was, I think it's not only doable, I think it's probable. Which for me meant my vision was now too small. And I remember, Alex, I'm sitting on the plane and I asked a question, what's a goal that would scare me? And I wrote down the current goal, 10x revenue in 10 years. And I added a zero, or no, it was 25x revenue in 10 years. I added a zero, 250 times revenue, but I crossed out the number 10 and I wrote 3 years. 250x revenue in 3 years. And our baseline at year one is not a small number. I almost had to grab the barf bag. I felt so nauseous when I wrote it down, which meant it was the right goal. But then I went to my own AI board And I gave it all the context on the situation, what our performance had looked like, this new vision, what I liked about it, what perceived impossible. And I had it play the role of board to interview me, to ask me one question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain deeper context. And its task was to tell me what was the high impact, non-obvious plan that I could execute that could actually make that real. And by the time I was done with that conversation with AI, Alex, I looked at the 250x revenue in 3 years and went, holy smokes, I think this is doable. So I went from no way, this is impossible, I think I need to throw up, to I think this is doable. Maybe I need to raise the goal again. Here was the mistake. I got so excited about my vision that I went back to my team and I shared the same example with them. I challenged them to go through the same exercise. What happened was an unexpected consequence. There were certain people on my team who I really valued who were drowning at our current level of growth. And when I come back and say, I'm adding a 0 and I'm cutting the timeline in 3, they said, I'm done. This guy has an unquenchable thirst for more. I don't have an interest in being on that kind of a rocket ship, which the truth is, that's not who I am. When I looked at that goal, it was an exercise in thinking bigger. Not that I actually wanted to become the type of person who would scale a company of that size over that period of time. For me, it was just, can I think bigger? Can I think differently? But it actually burned some people out and caused me to have turnover. And so this is where I've realized I need to balance my vision and my desire for growth with the right message at the right time with the team. Because not everybody's the founder. Very few people are the founders for a reason. And so I think there's got to be a filter in terms of what you think versus what you communicate.
And finally, for the people that would like to know more, who's Gail? How do you define your purpose right now? And what kind of conversations do you have with your wife?
Yeah, sure. So my purpose in life is to share ideas and ask questions that expand what's possible for people. The purpose of our company, AI Leadership, is to create better leaders, better businesses, and better lives. For me, that means something very specific. This is not just about harnessing AI to drive shareholder value. This is about building better leaders, enhancing the value of the people inside your organization. As a result, you build a better business. But because you build a better business, you also make a bigger impact in the lives of the communities that you serve. So for me, human interest is really at the center of this. And I want AI to enhance us, not to replace us. So what that means in terms of the conversations with my wife, I think the most relevant thing is how we use it in our own marriage. I've realized AI is so good at asking questions and communicating a clear message that I'm now realizing how inferior I am at that with my wife. And so earlier this year, it was January, my wife and I were downtown in Austin, Texas. We were doing a couples goal setting retreat. The nanny watched the kids. We got a hotel for the weekend where we set our goals. We talk about our relationship. We talk about what we want to achieve together over the course of the year. And I remember at one point, there was a problem that we wanted to solve together. And I said, let's use AI for this. And so I wrote a prompt following my framework in the AI-driven leader called CRIT. Stands for context, role, interview, task. I gave it lots of context on the situation and the challenge we were facing as a husband and a wife. Role, I had it act as a world-class marriage therapist, organizational psychologist, but also a prompt engineer. Had it interview us, ask one question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain deeper context about the situation. But I told it, you're going to ask a question, Amy's going to answer first, then Jeff's going to answer, and we'll distinguish between the two. And your task is to help us solve this problem. What happened though, Alex, I didn't see coming. Because when it conducts the interview, it asks a question, Amy would talk for 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. And then I would talk for 5 to 10 minutes. And it's listening and capturing everything because we're using speech to text. It interviewed us for an hour and a half. I'm realizing the amount of knowledge it just acquired on how I think versus how Amy thinks is unprecedented. And I shifted the task and said, actually, let's pivot. I want you to build a full-blown psychological profile for Amy and one for me, and the custom instructions that we can put into a project inside ChatGPT so that it can become our marriage coach. So that anytime we have conflict or tension, I can give you the situation. And because you understand how each of us thinks so well, you'll be able to diffuse the tension and help validate each other. A few hours later, she's complaining about something, and I tried to solve her problem. And she got really upset with me, which, right? I'm going to pull this up.
They want us to listen, not to solve problems.
Yeah, and I've heard that before, yet somehow I have a hard time implementing that. Let me read this to you. This was my initial prompt to the marriage coach. I'm speaking back on behalf of Amy. Why is it that when I'm expressing my feelings about something that's not going well in my life, my husband tries to solve the problem and it frustrates me? Here's what AI said. This isn't about him being dismissive or you being too emotional. It's a nervous system mismatch. When you express pain, you're seeking regulation and connection. When he hears pain, his nervous system hears a call to perform and fix. So the moment he moves to solutions, your body experiences it as you didn't see me, you skipped me. That's why frustration shows up so fast. Here's what's actually happening underneath without villainizing either of you. For Amy, speaking your feelings is asking to be held in experience. The need is stay with me, land with me. Solutions too early means containment was bypassed. That results in anger, masking grief and loneliness. For Geoff and many partners like him, hearing distress triggers responsibility and action. Solving is his way of loving you and being competent. He's trying to reduce the threat and restore stability. He doesn't realize that speed feels like abandonment to you. When I read that out loud to Amy, we both looked at each other and went, oh, and the tension was gone. So for us, AI is a part of our relationship. It's a tool for us to understand each other better, to communicate better, and to solve tension. And I'm doing the same thing with my kids now.
Well, thank you very much. To end this conversation, what do you take out of this conversation with me, Geoff? And what do you people would expect to see on the next book, so they can run and buy it?
Yeah, for me, it's just a reminder of this is about a journey of rediscovering who are you as a human, and how can AI enhance you, not replace you. And the AI-driven leader has been out about a year and a half now, and we are publishing the updated edition under our new publisher. It's been number one in the world ever since we published it. And so the updated version has new stories of how you can harness this as a thought partner, and more context on how you can actually use it to drive strategy and execution inside your organization. I think this book is something that every leadership team needs to read together. It genuinely changes how they think and how they start to act with AI at the center as AI-driven leaders.
And I want to thank you because I've been recommending your book many times.
Thank you.
But the first thing I did is I wrote it, and I've been using it since we met, about a year ago, every single day for, 2 or 3 hours a day. Making those.
What impact has it made for you?
I'm sorry?
What impact has it made for you?
In every sense, because for me, it's a thought leader. It's somebody that I can relate to. I push my thoughts into it, my questions. I ask him to interview people and to research things that I don't know that they're out there, and makes me a better person. And actually, it gives me tools to have better conversation with my kids and my wife. Definitely. That's
fantastic. Thank you.
It has changed a lot. Thanks a lot.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being in Business in Families. We'll see each other soon again. Thank you, Geoff.
Geoff, one of the biggest reflections I take away from this conversation is that AI is not replacing leadership. It is exposing leadership. It is revealing which organizations are willing to learn, adapt, collaborate, and rethink themselves before the market forces them to do it. And perhaps family businesses because they think in generations instead of quarters, may have the unique opportunity to combine human values with technological intelligence in a very powerful way. I also believe this conversation reinforces something I often see working with business families around the world. Technology alone does not create continuity. What creates continuity is leadership, clarity, adaptability, and the courage to evolve before circumstances force change upon us. Geoff, thank you for sharing your insights, your experience, and your perspective with us today. I truly believe this conversation will help many leaders begin thinking differently about the future. And before we close, I also want to thank London Consulting Group for supporting this space, Business in Families, and helping us continue bringing conversations like this one that connect leadership, transformation, governance, and long-term continuity for organizations around the world. And to everyone listening, if today's episode sparked new ideas and reflections, please share this episode, subscribe to the podcast, and continue the conversation with us. Because in the end, legacy is not only about preserving what previous generations built. It is about having the courage to evolve it for the generations still to come.